suppose this all goes back to the UKIFC's involvement with the wider world of ethical finance, which has been a major strand of our activities right from the start. Many other faith traditions were likewise grappling with various aspects of various questions of ethical finance, albeit in various stages of development. But what was conspicuous was that there was very little sign of dialogue going on between the faiths. This crystallised in 2015 when the idea emerged that we should try to move things forward by opening up a dialogue between Islamic finance and the Christian church. The idea of at least the initial phase of the project was to look at the question of what are the fundamental shared values between the two faiths in relation to the sphere of finance and economics, and while recognising, of course, that there are clear areas of difference in the interpretation of the role of interest and the meaning of usury, but to try and identify to what degree there were shared values, and if so, could a framework be constructed out of that which would effectively provide a point of reference to the financial and investment industries. That was taken forward by a whole series of workshops, meetings, consultations, etc. I won't go into all the details, but it involved, to a degree, representatives from other faith groups, and certainly also, and I think importantly, senior professionals from the finance and investment communities as well. And this culminated, or the initial phase culminated with the completion of the initial document, the Edinburgh Finance Declaration. The core of the declaration is the identification of 6 shared values. The first, and really the cornerstone of these, is the concept of stewardship. In other words, encapsulating the idea that humanity does not have the right, an unfettered right, to use the resources of the planet as it chooses, but rather should see its role as being that of trustee for the generations to come, and indeed all of life on the planet.
One of the things that's really interesting when we talk about culture, and when we talk about the finance industry, and when we talk about change, we're actually talking about people. We're actually talking about ourselves and the people within those institutions, and those people working together to bring about change, those people learning to work ethically and being together. Using a sporting analogy, my partner's Australian. There's nothing worse than someone who's converted to a different sport. I love Aussie rules football. Don't understand it? As far as I can work out, provided you can either play volleyball, or you can play basketball, or you can play rugby, or you can play football, and cricket, because they play it on a cricket pitch, you can play. But actually, for the game to work, they've all got to play together. We talk a lot about regulation. And I remember a very wise banker saying to me at the Credit Crunch, he was saying, they can spend as much time as they like putting in regulation. Bright bankers will always find a way around it. Actually, what's much more important is for everyone working with an organisation to take personal responsibility and being accountable for their actions and their decisions. And so the next thing that got bandied around was the moral compass. Nice idea? What is a moral compass? What's its magnetic north? What makes it work? Well, actually, what makes it work is, what are the components that make up to it? It's our upbringing, it's our education, it's our nationality, it's our culture, and for some of us, it's our faith. And that's what drives our behaviour, our thinking, our relationships within the workplace, and learning about what is the right thing to do. We talk about doing something because it's legal, but we also need to think about, is it moral?
I'm a banker, my brother is a Catholic priest, and my sister is a social worker. And I think if you want to context about culture, we all go to church on a Sunday. And church is a building that we go to for a short period of time. And you would think, as we all three walk out, not the same church, because they're up north and I'm here, but we're going to do things differently. But actually, we're not. I would say my brother has an easier job because he has a collar, so people tend to listen to him. But he wouldn't agree, but there we go. But we all do the same thing. We go into our communities and we do what we believe is right. So in banking, sometimes you have to take a personal risk. You have to stand up pre-crisis. So my background is credit lending, risk management, financial crime risk at the end. 3 years with UK government on secondment when they created a bank and wanted to do some housing. So I've kind of been around a few things. Risk is my background, and there are things that you need to stand up and say it's not right. When people tell you there's no risk, they're not telling you the truth, because there's always risk. We just probably don't understand it. One of the things banks got a bad name for was, creating models and structures that were horrible. If I got a creator in front of me that said, we're going to make a fortune and there's no risk. Right, okay, well, there's a few things there that I'm immediately going to say. One is, if there's no risk and we're going to make a fortune, you've actually not been fair to the customer, because why are they paying so much? Because that's not fair. It either means you haven't told me what the risk is, but I need to go and find it, and I'm going to sit there till I do. Or it also means we as a bank don't understand it, and some really smart bank has decided they don't want to do it, and they'll let us do it, thinking we're going to make money.
One of the things that I find most interesting is this issue of usury. I'm a Christian, and we abandoned that in 1555 because Calvin thought it would be better for the business community, who were all predestined to be good and wealthy, and the rest of us weren't. So it didn't really matter if you had a ban on it. And that, I think, was a great betrayal. And I think it's something that we as Christians need to actually confront and go back into. But what is interesting is that the next faith that took a ban on usury were the Taoists of China. And the Taoists of China ran a semi-independent theocracy at the end of the Han Dynasty, so around about 200 AD, for about 50 years. And they drew up a handbook called the Taiping Qing, the classic of great peace. And in that, they laid out fully the theological basis for a ban on usury, which was essentially that finance is a gift of energy. And as a gift of energy, it does not derive from us. We are simply the handlers of it for a certain period. And to claim that we have made it is, if you like, to set up an idol. And therefore, the Taoists, who have a belief that everything flows from the Tao, the way, the ultimate sense of meaning, feel that this is a pretty fundamental betrayal. If you only use the word stewardship, this is a word that no other tradition other than the Abrahamics have any sympathy with at all. It's a managerial model, it's not a relationship model, it's not a sacramental model. And the other faiths, particularly I'm thinking here of Buddhist, Hindu, Jain, Sikh, Shinto, for them, the notion that we are in charge is the basis of most of our folly. And I'm reminded particularly of an event that we held as the Alliance of Religions and Conservation in Sweden, where we brought together religious forest owners, or faiths that had major forests, because 5% of the total commercial forestry of the world is owned outright by faiths. And another 15% of forests are considered sacred, which is why they're still there. And we've been working very closely with the Maronite Church in Lebanon that owns one of the last remaining great oak forests of the Eastern Mediterranean. And they have created a Maronite protected forest environment, which is incredibly successful. And they proposed, wouldn't it be marvellous if all the faiths declared that their faith, their forest, was faith-protected forests. And all the Abrahamic faiths kind of went, yes, yes, wonderful idea. And literally, we almost had to bring the Shinto and the Hindus around with smelling salts, because they were so shocked at this notion. And they said, what are you talking about? We don't protect the forests. They protect us. And that's the core of the other view. The core of the other view is that we are not here to manage or to run it well. We're here to be grateful. We're here to be amazed at the bounty and wonder of creation.